So thanks everyone for joining us today. It's our February monthly meetup for PNSQC. If you're new here, welcome, and I see some familiar faces as well. Welcome back. Um, we're just meeting virtually this month because last month we were all at we did our quality jam, and so we're taking a little break from meeting up in person. And as you can see by I assume everyone can see my screen, but this month's topic is going to be about job tips and interviewing because it's that time of the year again. Folks, especially with all the layoffs that have been going on, whether it's in the private sector or and in the government, lots of folks are entering the market, and we've got a few wonderful folks who have agreed to spend some time tonight and go over how they've been helping job seekers, whether that's with their resume, helping them with finding connections on LinkedIn or all sorts of different tactics. So I'll go ahead and just kick us off with a quick summary of who PNSQC is. We've been doing this for 43 years now. We're an annual conference usually that is held here in Portland, Oregon. We're nonprofit and it's completely run by volunteers like myself. And we are focusing on the quality practitioner. And so we love to have folks that speak about their own hands-on experience. We, I guess, usually don't have consultants or vendors come to the conference to speak, but sometimes we make that exception, like tonight. But doesn't make their contributions any less important than folks who like to give their own personal experience. Um, we've got a range of different topics and speakers that we do both in these monthly meetups as well as at our annual conference, and all sorts of different topics in quality, whether that's AI is a big one. We've got other folks with measuring quality, enterprise quality, and so on. So in terms of, that is outdated, but I'm just going to stop sharing and just go back to camera here. So in terms of who we've got three presenters today. I'm going to pass it over to our first presenter in a moment, who is Heather Joy. Heather is a career coach, and she's been in the field for about 15 years now. She's got a technical background. I had a very pleasant chat with her last week to learn all about how she started in her career path. She worked at Nike for a bit, and now is kind of fully focused on being a consultant and career coach. And she's worked with some notable brands like Top Resume, ZipJob, and JobStars. And I think Heather, when we talked, Heather said that you was going to speak about how to use ChatGPT and how to interview effectively. And so I'm going to pass it over to Heather to introduce herself and take it away.
All right, it's great to meet all of you. Thanks so much for inviting me to speak to you tonight. I know interviewing, resume writing, all of those things are such a fun, interesting topic for most people. I see some head shaking there. And so when I work with people, I try to make it a little bit more engaging and always look for ways to work smarter, not harder at this whole process, especially now because it is more complicated to apply for jobs, especially with applicant tracking systems and a different way to network. There's and then AI, whether you can use that or not. So it can get a little bit complicated and frustrating. And then you have the job market that we're dealing with right now. Part of it from this past year has been a little bit painful for people. A lot of companies were waiting to see what happened with the election. I think some people are still waiting to see what's going to happen with some things. with employment. And so it's my job to help people who are looking for work, job seekers, to approach this more effectively and in a way that's more energizing instead of draining the life out of you from the whole process. So if any of you have questions throughout, I'm happy to answer those. But I thought I would focus on interviewing, some different tips with mindset and some different ways to approach it, and then how to use ChatGPT to actually prepare for interviews. I've found a newer way to do that, and it's been really helpful so far. So as far as interviewing, what people need to remember is when you go into that interview, they don't really care about you. They care about what you can do for them. And so even though you might have a good connection with them or they might be very friendly, the interviewers are not your friend. They're there to make a business decision, and they're deciding, they're watching to see if there's anything that might point them to not wanting to hire you. So they're looking for a reason not to hire you just as much as they are to hire you. And you do have to be careful what you say. So you want to approach this in a friendly way, but really be others focused. So in that process, you want to make sure that you're not overanalyzing negative or ambiguous things about the situation. That can be something that really makes us nervous. For example, you could be sitting there in the chair waiting to interview, or even in the middle of the interview, and instead of focusing on what they're saying or trying to get them to talk and identify some challenges that they have, you're sitting there thinking, oh, why did I wear this outfit? Or I hope they don't ask me this question. Or I spilled coffee on my suit. They're going to see that. This is just a disaster. I might as well just leave right now. When you do that, you're being self-focused instead of being others-focused. And so you have to really get yourself to think about that person in front of you and make this the most engaging conversation they've had. And that actually means you're going to say less and try to get them to talk more. So instead of thinking about that outfit that you're wearing, a really great visualization that I have shared with people is, imagine that you're walking down the street of your hometown and a tourist comes up to you and asks you for directions. In that moment, you're not thinking about what you're wearing or what they're wearing or what you hope they don't ask you, unless you're terrible at giving directions or you don't have time for that. Your mind and body automatically become completely engaged in helping them get to where they need to go. You're helping someone who's asking for help. And so you're going to ask them questions, get them to talk. You might give them your phone number or a map or even a ride to make sure that they get there okay. But the point is that your mind and body are completely engaged in helping them get to where they need to go. And that's how you should be in the interview. So if it helps, think of every interviewer as if they're a tourist. And that can change how you feel about the whole thing. That's something that definitely helped me because I used to really struggle with this quite a bit. Another tip I have is you actually want them to do most of the talking, 70%, because that's how you're going to identify what their professional pain points are. So you can show them that you have solved problems like that in the past, that you genuinely care about their problems. And so we want to get them to talk. So something that you can do is, of course, you're going to have a list of some different questions that you might want to ask them, some deeper level questions. But you should also have engagement or check-in questions that you weave throughout the conversation. Even if they say, please hold all of your questions until the end. And then if they ask you if you have any questions, it's just kind of a courtesy at that point. They might not even have time. You want to weave those engagement questions throughout the interview because that increases connection to you and, again, gets them to talk about the challenges that they're having. So how do you do that? So the different questions that I use could be, after I've answered a question, it could be, does that help? Or would you like me to tell you more about that? Would you like me to expand on that? Did that answer your question? Or does this resonate with you? So if you're speaking about leadership or philosophizing on processes, you can ask them, does this resonate with you? Are we on the same page? And that will get them to engage with you. It will force them to do a response. Maybe the response is just going to be yes or no, but because they had to respond to you, it increases the connection. And that can be really helpful. And again, identifying what challenges they have. Now, let's say you're answering these questions and you're asking an engagement question and your answer has not been very smooth. You make a mistake. I like to embrace that with humor. And so everyone, you included, are going to mess up on something on your interview. They might not even know it, but you will. And so if you make a mistake when you're giving that answer, you can show them that you're very self-aware, you have a sense of humor, they get a little view into what it would be like to work with you when something goes wrong. And so an example of that might be, wow, that was a really polished answer. Let me try that again. Or I really butchered that explanation, but did it make sense where I was going with that? Saying things like that show that you embrace a challenge, you're not afraid of it. And again, you're self-aware and you're not going to fall apart when something goes wrong. Most employers like people who don't fall apart when something goes wrong. All right. One other thing that can really help with your mindset when you're interviewing is one of the other reasons that people tend to get nervous. And that is when you go into the interview, you put that interviewer or the interview itself on a pedestal. And when you do that, you're already feeling like you're less than. And it's just not true. Everyone has a part to play, and one part is not more valuable than the other. You're actually deciding if you want to help them or not. It's not just them deciding if they like you, if you would be a good fit. You're making a business decision on that as well. And so we want to, the reason why you might be putting them on a pedestal is, maybe it's that person's job title, their attitude, their education, the fact that they already work at that company and you want to. It could be any of those. So you want to mentally take them off that pedestal and instead think of the interviewer as if they are a potential client with a challenge and you have or are the solution. If you weren't, you wouldn't be there. They've already more than 50% decided that you are a good fit for that role. And so you really want to embrace that. Most people don't want to waste their time interviewing people for no reason. So you can take confidence in the fact that they did call you in or they did call you for the interview. They're at least 50% convinced that you're a good fit. And so, like I said, you have a part to play. And when you can grab onto that confidence, then it changes how you feel about that person and about the interview. They're not on a pedestal. You're there to identify what challenges they have, determine if you want to be a part of that, and also identify any red flags that might be deal breakers for you. One of the other things I wanted to make sure I cover today is how to use ChatGPT effectively for interview prep. So most people, when they want to do interview prep, if they can hire a coach or a resume writer to help them with that, they're not going to be able to afford to hire someone every time they have an interview. So I really wanted to find a way to help people be more independent with that. And one of the ways you can do that with ChatGPT is with these specific prompts. And I will send out some of these notes and the prompts after the meeting today, so you can get time to actually review this and not try to remember everything I said. For ChatGPT, what you do is you take your entire resume and the job description and you just dump all of that into ChatGPT. And you tell ChatGPT to create 10 or 20, however many questions you want, interview questions and answers that are true about the resume and in alignment with the job description. And you're also going to tell it to tell you or ask it to tell you why these answers are good answers, and then identify 3 to 5 keywords that you could weave throughout that conversation. It doesn't mean you're going to get to all of those keywords. It's about getting the strategy into your head. And so it will lay all of those out for you pretty quickly. And the great thing about it is when you're interviewing, you already have these top accomplishment highlights that you probably cover. In fact, you might even talk about them the same way every time. ChatGPT is going to choose different accomplishments many times or say it in a different way. And so when you read through that and you see why it's a good answer, why that interviewer would find it valuable, it helps you to think bigger about how you can be helpful to that organization. So again, you're not trying to memorize everything, but this helps you to prepare for other questions you might not have thought of that they may throw at you. And that will definitely increase your confidence. I've had a few different people try this over the past month, been testing that, and they found it really effective, more effective than just general Q&A practice, because it is very specific and tailored to their background and that particular job. So that should be fun for you to test out a little bit. All right, so I'd like to take a minute here to see if anyone has any questions, or if anyone has had any tough interview questions they'd like to understand how to answer a little bit better. Okay, everybody's so quiet.
Were you planning on doing a demo of the chat GTP, the prompts, or
Yes, I can do that.
yeah, I think that
Yeah.
would might be helpful for folks to just follow along with an example.
Sure. Let me
Yeah.
just pull that open for
Are
you.
you able to share your screen, or do I need to grant you access to do that?
Let me pull these up really quick first, and then
Okay.
I can do that. And I'm going to use a test resume here. Okay, and then find a job description here, and then I can share my screen with you.
It looks like Moss has also written something in the chat for you to answer, but you can
Oh,
do
perfect.
the demo first.
And
Sounds good.
Sherry as well.
Okay, let me make sure this is correct. Okay, there we go. It wasn't opening the right thing here. Okay, so I have the paid version of ChatGPT. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste a template resume that I have into, and before I do that, I'll put the prompts in here. So I'm going to say, create 10 interview questions and answers that are true about this resume and in alignment with the job description. Tell me why they are good answers. Identify 3 to 5 keywords that I should weave into the conversation. And you could also add in other prompts, such as alternate behavioral versus technical questions. So I'm going to put the resume into here. I'm going to delete some of these blank items here. And then I need to get the job description. So for the job description, I'm just going to select everything about the job that I can, all of the most important items. The pay is not going to be important. So move that here. So because I hit enter too quickly, I'm just going to say redo. Here is the job description. Now with the paid version, it learns from you if you haven't already experimented with this a bit. So the writing continues to improve. I've been using this one for about 1.5 years, and it's consistently improved and writes more the way that I would for a resume. So now you can see. So here's an example. How have you managed complex scheduling tasks that involve coordinating multiple partners across various time zones? And so it talks about here about the previous role, coordinated meetings across several time zones, etc. Why it's a good answer. It demonstrates your experience with complex meeting management, which is critical for this role. This mention of using specific tools and proactive communication aligns with the job requirements for scheduling and stakeholder engagement. And then it identifies keywords. If you were preparing in advance, even with your resume, getting ready to apply to something, you could, I have another one that I use for that, but you could use this to identify keywords you should weave into that as well. So you can be reviewing these, and it really helps you understand the why behind something in your experience would be appealing to that employer. It doesn't take very long. And if you just test this out with a few jobs that you would apply for before you ever have an interview, you'll get a little bit better at it and be able to practice more effectively, even if you don't have a coach to practice with or you don't have someone else to practice with. This information is going to be much more tailored to you. So, all right, I think we had a question here. Let me
Moss, do you want to read it out loud?
Sure. I was just curious if you had some tips for connecting with people when it's on a Zoom meeting or a phone interview versus in person. It's hard to show, like, for example, I have my screen turned off right now. I'm sure hopefully people don't have their screens turned off during the interview, but when you're on a phone call, sometimes they seem so distant, it's hard to tell what the reactions are.
Yeah, well, weaving those questions to them throughout the conversation, so it draws them into it. A more creative way to ask a question might be, tell me what keeps you up at night. What are some of the challenges that you'd really like me to help you solve? If you show genuine interest in what their pain points are, then they're going to open up. You want them to spill the tea. That's why you want them to do most of the talking, so that, again, you can identify the red flags and see what the real challenges are. Now, when it's a recruiter, that's a little more of a challenge because they usually don't really understand that job. They're looking at a list of keywords to check off to say, yes, these candidates are the top ones. We'd like to move them forward. Do you want to talk to them? And so that conversation is going to be a little bit shorter anyway. You don't have to be as deep in your explanations with that. But with networking with people just on the phone when they can't see you, ask more engaging questions. You can actually ask ChatGPT to help you make questions more engaging, to get them really invested and tell you what their problems are. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We had a couple other questions, I believe. Well, one of them was wanting that first part of the prompt. You said you were going to share that with me or share that with everyone afterwards, yes. Right? Yeah. And then we had a question about specifically what your tips or ideas are for what should be in a resume for one of our software quality professionals. If you want to. I know that's a little bit different than interview tips, but if you want to get to that after you're done talking with interviews, that I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I don't mind. Well, honestly, what I do is I go and look at the different job descriptions that are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the audience that can afford you, and it's so important to get LinkedIn right. But LinkedIn is where I usually look at job descriptions to see what they're looking for. And what you can do, I'll send you this ChatGPT guide I created too. It's for how to customize your resume to each position and create a targeted cover letter in less than 5 minutes. It's wonderful. But what you do is you put your resume in there, the job description, and you would say something like, identify the top 10 skills this job is looking for. And then you would put your resume in there next for the next prompt, and you would say, is this resume a good fit for this role? It will give you a full analysis on whether you are or not, and then what's good, what is a good fit, and then where the gaps are. What's fantastic about that is those gaps might not actually be gaps. They might just be something that you forgot to mention in your resume. And so then that prompts you to go and add it in. But if you use ChatGPT to analyze that job description and your resume and then compare them for you, you're not going to spend so much time over analyzing it on your own and getting mentally exhausted trying to figure that out. So does that answer your question? Let's see, I'll look down in the messages.
Yes, he said yes.
Okay, good.
It looks like also Michelle wrote asking for recommendations for a technical interview if you had tips about doing live coding exercises, I assume in front of folks. That one also stresses me out. So
yes, I would say the best way to overcome that is to actually practice doing that with other people, where have a friend test you on something with the coding. Because now my IT background, I used to work in software development as a project coordinator, business analyst. So I'm not technical like you guys and gals, but I do understand your world. I've never had to do a live interview where they were testing me, except for an Excel spreadsheet very early in my career. I failed. But if you can practice with other people or have a friend test you who is familiar with what you do and understands that coding, that can help. Then you can also go back to ChatGPT and have it act as an interviewer giving you that technical test. Give it examples. You should be very specific with it. It's like a child, but you can be very specific with ChatGPT and have it run that for you. So I encourage you to experiment with it. There's so many more things I've started to use it for that I hadn't thought of before. All right. Did that help?
Yeah, thank you. That is
You're welcome. Okay. Let's see. There's another one here from Jan. I'm applying for a job where they're asking for examples about every type of testing that I've done on the application. That could be a really long answer. In an interview, I've asked interviewers what part they're interested in. However, sometimes they won't give you an answer. How would you handle this situation? So you're doing well as far as asking them what specifically they're looking for. Another way you could ask that question is, what are some of the challenges you'd like my help with? Or give me an example of some of the challenges you want someone to solve. And that can help you pinpoint it more. Sometimes they might be asking you that question to kind of test how you do in an uncomfortable situation. And so you need to have a ready answer if you think they might not give you any feedback on that. If that's what they're doing, then you need to have a basic example that's just more simplified, and you can offer to go into more detail. You can say at the end of your answer, would you like me to expand on that? Or is there something that you would like me to take a deeper dive into? That forces them again to engage with you and give a response. And even if it's yes or no, but that will help guide you as far as whether you're going in the right direction or not.
okay. So at the very end, besides, if they don't give you an answer, just say, am I going the right way or something like that? Just trying to get some confirmation of some kind.
You can give a short explanation of the very high level piece of that. And then you can say, would you like me to expand on that? Or would you like me to take a deeper dive into that? Or if you need even more specific than that, you can say, would you give me an example of a problem you'd like me to solve, or you would have someone on your team solve? And that'll give you a little more information as far as what to pull from in your background.
Okay.
That work?
That would work. What's really happening right now, and that's just, I've had that happen in interviews. I have an application where they're asking me for examples for all the testing that I've done. I'm thinking this is going to be a really kind of long answer, and I'm not sure whether they're completely I can't, in that case, I can't really ask the questions because I can't get immediate feedback.
That's a good point. one of the things that I tell people when I'm first doing a coaching session with them with an outplacement service I have a contact with is I'll say, I'm going to give you, it'll be a fire hose of information with me because there's quite a bit to this that I can help you with, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, or if there's anything that you would like to have an additional conversation about, I'm happy to do that, because they're not going to remember everything you say anyway, even if you keep it more concise. So if you use a little bit of humor to lighten that up a little bit, that might help by saying something like that. Oh, this is going to be a fire hose of info. Sure,
Okay.
you want that?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
It is. I can't even imagine it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
You don't know what you're asking for. You're about
Yeah.
to kind of get a lot of information.
Yeah, I don't know if they really do understand, but it all depends who, develops this whole thing, develops all the questions. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay. Well, thanks.
Oh, and you could be talking to a recruiter who really doesn't get it. They really don't. And like, well, what? Okay, just tell me what keywords are on your list, and we'll check those off. Right?
Oh gosh,
Just go
that's
around.
funny.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's a good way of that's another funny way of putting it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Any recommendations for being comfortable in a technical interview? I talked about that a little bit already. How do you see the best way to connect with positions outside your network? Are there any must events we should attend? That is a great question, actually. I've been going to some networking events recently, and their Max List is a really great site here in the Portland, Oregon area. They have just started doing some events. I think they do 4 a year, if I got that right. And this last one was called How Not to Let AI Steal Your Job. It was so good. They had 3 panelists. There was a great opportunity for networking. I took some clients with me, and we had so much fun. We met a lot of different people, and it led to connections for jobs too. They had some colleges there, a career coaching group, but they also had this one group called, I have their card here, AI Portland. You could look them up as well. They put on a lot of events, and any events you can get out to where they're helping job seekers or talking about a timely topic, you should go, because you're going to meet some people who might open a door for you that you weren't expecting. That certainly happened for me too. And I prefer going to in-person events. I don't like the online ones. And now that they're starting to have more of the in-person networking events, a lot of them are free. Some of them cost a little bit, but just get out there, see if you can get a friend to go with you or another job seeker. But again, that one, it's called Max List, and he actually has a podcast, and they have a jobs board, and most of the jobs, as far as I know, are real. Let's see.
Before you answer next question, was there any more planned material that you had, or was that everything that you had planned to talk about?
Everything I had planned for today.
Okay, because we went into questions kind of informally, but I didn't know if you were actually done or not.
Oh no, thank you for asking.
Yeah. I know there are questions that are flowing in. I just want to remind everyone that we do have 2 other speakers that they're going to talk about very similar topics, as well as more about resumes and networking. So don't feel like your question won't be answered. I'm sure that our other presenters will be happy to answer them as well if you want to save some questions for other presenters. But how about we answer the next few questions, or spend the next 5 minutes and then answering the remaining questions, and then we'll move on to Susan, who'll go next.
Sure, sounds good. Let's see, any specific suggestions for phone screening interview who is typically someone from HR? When you're speaking to someone from HR, and this is in my experience, and there's 2 other very talented people who have experience in this too, who are speaking today, to your point. Person from HR, or a recruiter, they don't always completely understand what you do. And so they're operating off of a checklist of keywords that they're looking for. HR have a little more of a clue because they're at the company, but you have to keep that in mind. So when you're explaining something technical to them, you need to simplify it so that they'll understand what you're talking about. And again, speak to everyone, every interviewer, as if they're a client with the challenge and you have or are the solution, or like they're a tourist, and it'll help you not to feel so nervous about answering those questions. Seems like there are so many. I'll make this my last one, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
People can always email me later too. I'm happy to answer questions that way. Seems like there are so many tools, technologies, and coding languages out there. Seems almost impossible to know them all. My question is, how much leeway do companies give in learning their tools? Do tech companies train or give you some time to learn a new tool? Yes, some of them do give you training. No, you can't possibly learn them all, but if a database example is what I can give you, because I have worked in those. If you learn one database, you can learn another one pretty easily. And what you want to show them, they know that you're not going to know everything. So you can take confidence in that. That's impossible. And what you want to show them is that you don't run away from challenge, you embrace it, that you ramp up very quickly, and you're going to make this role your own within the next 6 months. You can actually use those words. And you can also talk about how, actually, I have great foundational experience in this area, and let me show you how. Or if you're not sure what to cover, again, you can say, tell me, what are some of the challenges that you'd like my help with, and get them to talk about that. Oftentimes there's some critical issue that they are just dying to explain and talk about. You want them to do that. So that takes the pressure off of you of having to do all the talking. You want them to talk. Then you'll know what to pull from your background. And again, to go back to the point here, is you say, you're showing them that you're not afraid of a challenge. You embrace it. You're going to ramp up quickly. You already have all of this other great foundational experience. This is just the next challenge. And that's normal from job to job. So, all right. Well, it's great speaking with you all. I'm looking forward to listening to the other presenters too. And if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can find me under Heather Joy. My company is called The Right Path Resumes, and I do interview coaching, LinkedIn strategy, resumes as well. And sometimes I post something helpful on LinkedIn, including videos. So you're welcome to check that out.
All right, thank you so much, Heather. That was great. I especially like the ChatGPT demonstration, and yeah, I will make sure that Heather and I will connect after this. She'll send me her prompt notes, as well as I'll pass along her email address as well, and I'll make sure to get that out to everyone. But we're gonna go ahead and move on now to Susan. So Susan has been a long time volunteer for both PNSQC, and I also believe the Atlanta Quality Assurance Association, or the AQAA.
Right.
She might have sorry, what was that?
You were right. Yeah,
I
you
was
got
right. I pronounced it right. Okay, great. It was actually the first time that I heard about the association when we were talking about it last week. Yeah, so Susan's been volunteering for a long time. She's been in the QA space for almost 20 years. She's worked with a variety of different companies, ranging from large ones like AT&T and Warner Brothers to smaller ones, startups like 22 Squared and Alclaro. I'm really excited to hear what Susan has to say. I believe you're going to be talking about networking and LinkedIn, or that will be your focus. And it also sounded like there might be some questions that came up in the chat that you have some thoughts on as well. So I will go ahead and pass it on over to you, Susan.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Oh, can you?
Yeah, one moment.
I can give a PowerPoint. I have done a little talk on this in the past, and I pared it down to be shorter for tonight. I'm going to make a few assumptions. So let me just pull that up real quick. Now I'm not real good at, whoops. I'm screen sharing, okay. Oh, somebody always has to tell me, how do I get rid of the things on the left?
Click the play button that's up there, I believe. So top, go to the left.
Top, go left. I
There,
don't see.
you right there, play.
There.
Yeah, there you
Yep,
got
okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, do you guys see the little window with everybody's pictures in it?
We don't see the notes,
Okay.
but we see your screen, the job search part.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm not very versed at this part. Anyway, this is how to reach me. I will follow up with anybody that has questions at the end or even after today. So I'm all about job search strategy. And my very first thing is I never apply online. Now I will say that I talked to one of the, oops, I should have done that. I talked to one of the board members in the after the fall conference, and my little addendum there is that I don't apply online. I believe in networking into the position, and there are some strategies to be had with that. And I think in this current job market that is absolutely necessary to get shortlisted and to be even looked at, because if you're applying online, it's a needle in the haystack. You're probably going to get ghosted. You're probably going to get rejections. If you go in through someone you actually know, you have a better chance of getting even looked at and considered. And I'm hoping you're a good match. But even if you're not necessarily a good match, sometimes, your personality might just get you the job because they see based, I was going to say Heather did a great job. So if you can show that you have these 8 or 10 other skills that they're looking for, and you're just missing 1 or 2, or whatever those numbers are, you have a better chance of doing it. So I'll give an example. So years ago, I worked on the NBA app at Warner Brothers, which at the time was Turner Sports. And, I was working on Android and iOS and, PC desktop and Mac laptop and, all these, different devices. And then I could also point out that I worked on Xbox and PlayStation when I worked at Netflix. So all these different devices. And so I would not have a hard time, for instance, picking up how to use a Roku or a Fire TV or an Apple TV. Now, mind you, this is 2016, so everybody knows how to use those now, but maybe not then. So I just wanted to say, I'm going to go back to my addendum. The board member mentioned that if people don't apply online, they'll never get a government job. I was like, well, that's a good point. But I networked myself into the job and got all the way through the interview process. And then I had to apply online. So I did apply online technically after I had the job offer. So just an example. I wanted to talk about, what should you already have? I'm going to assume that you already have your 30-second elevator pitch, that you've built out your network on LinkedIn, that you can define what is unique for you. And what is unique for you is also your elevator pitch. So for me, those things are streaming and OTT QA or localization QA, which is language QA. If there's particular tools, say like Charles Proxy, which I use for the streaming side, that is something that's pretty unique in the market. And you might use those as your search terms. I particularly like Indeed, but there are other job search boards out there. I use Indeed and have them send me a what's called a push notification. So if I do a localization QA job I'm in Atlanta, in Georgia, so they'll send me things where it says localization QA in Alpharetta, Georgia. Great, that's the town right next to me. So if I could find that right here close to home, I'm excited. It's rare. And I mentioned the trifold. You should at this point also have a target company list. So when you go out and you have conversations with friends and former coworkers, you can say, oh, these particular, 3 to 5 companies, don't make it a really long list, but these are ones that really intrigue me. So when I say I want localization QA or streaming, who's going to want that skill set that I learned? So who uses Roku and Fire TV and Apple TV? That could be anywhere from the Major League Baseball, because I have NBA experience, or that could be the Olympics, because it's going to tie in my French with the NBA and sports. So those are people that, based on my skill set, are going to want me. And can you define what that is for you? And if you can define what that is for you, I'm happy to have a conversation with how you need to use those search criteria to find who those companies are that want you for that skill set. But you have to define it. Yeah, I love this one. If you aren't ready, like mentally, take a vacation. I've been on a couple of vacations and I literally send out emails and I come back to a job. I get it. It was 2006. It was 2016. There were different times, but it's possible. And I go in, I can give examples of how I did it, and I will do that, and I have done it. You could probably look at last year's conference recordings to see that. And I'm happy to talk, but that's not what we're here for tonight, because this should be a shorter presentation. But I do want to say I always go through my network. So I didn't really talk about my process. My process is I identify localization QA in say Alpharetta. And I got that from Indeed because that's my search criteria. And then at that point, I take it over to LinkedIn and I say, okay, who do I know? So I identified this particular job. It happened to be at a company called North Highland. It's a small company in Atlanta that's a little like the big Deloitte. And I use my search criteria and I say, who do I know at North Highland? I knew 4 people there. And I drill down to, okay, based on the relationship I have with those 4 people, have I met them? Are they a random connection? Do we share something in common, like a college or a past job or played sports together or some other part of my life? Based on those 4 people, I choose selectively where I want to go. And then I talk to that person. I usually start the conversation on LinkedIn. And I always make it easy for them. I said, here's the URL, here's the job. And, do you have any idea? Do you have any connections that might be able to tell me about this? And in this case, I reached out to a guy that I had helped in networking several years before that. And I said, hey, James, I see this localization QA job at North Highland in Atlanta, in Alpharetta specifically. Can you tell me anything about it? I'm particularly interested in what languages, because frankly, I speak French. I can test in Spanish, German, Dutch, Italian. I can at least navigate through the screens. But if you give me Mandarin, Chinese, or Arabic, I'll be a little bit lost. And James wrote back, he's like, oh, funny, that's my project. And so here, I helped him 5 years earlier. Now he wants to help me. He has a good memory of our relationship, of my trying to help him in his job search. So it's pay it forward or pay it back. Anyway, so that's how I go through the process. And ultimately, just to tell you, I had a job interview with HR, and then I had a job interview with my boss, and my boss actually reported to James. And so he's like, I don't need to talk to her. I know her, I'm good. So that's how I work it. I work my network. I use Indeed, I use LinkedIn, strategically choose who I want to approach. And I think my next screen is going to talk about, Heather's already sort of talked about some of this. I truly believe in the in-person networking. I want to be out and talking to people and have those conversations. I'm in this post-COVID world. I'm tired of Zoom. I'm tired of phone calls. Be out talking to people. And then the very last thing I say on here is a T letter. And it's something I learned 10 to 15 years ago at Right Management or Lee Hecht Harrison when I had been laid off. And there is an example of it on my profile on LinkedIn. You're welcome to look at it. I can send you the doc or the PDF if you need. It basically, on the left-hand column, it shows each requirement that the job has. And on the right side, you show exactly how you match those requirements. And I've had recruiters tell me that it made their job easier because frankly, then the hiring manager looks and they go, their eyes go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Yeah, I want to talk to this person because now they don't have to read a 2-page document trying to find those words that they want specifically. And here's an example. I know it's kind of small, but like I said, you can find this on my LinkedIn profile. I think it's on the second block down. It says something about LinkedIn. And here's who I am. And I see that there's a couple of questions. If I go up and I click on that, you guys are all going to see it. So I don't know, Jeremy, do you want to read that to me?
Which particular questions were you referring to
I don't
previously?
know. I just see the number 3, and I'm afraid that if I click on it, then
No, there weren't any questions that came in while you were talking, but if anyone has questions, feel free to come off mute or to put in the chat, and I'm sure Susan would love to answer them. Were there any answers for questions that were previously asked that you have your own opinion on?
yeah, here, let me, you want to go ahead and, I don't know, share? And I'll go over and look at, there was one.
Oh, looks like someone just wrote in a question. Networking suggestions for introverts. That's a good one.
I see it.
Yeah.
So, Demian, what you're going to want to do is still do the in-person. And I know you've been to PNSQC and I've met you. And my best suggestion is that you go and talk to people that you actually know first.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, then the route guidance.
Okay, don't know what that was. Talk to people that you know or set up pre-set up times to talk to people and try and pull them away from the group and you know, sit down and have an actual one-on-one conversation, because I believe that introverts have a better time and we'll work with that scenario better. But I do still believe in person. So I don't know exactly. I think you're in Seattle. I don't know what's there, but I know here in Atlanta, we have job seeker programs at churches. I've been to synagogues as well. Don't know about mosques or any other places, but I know that there are also what I call adjacent organizations. So if it's not a QA organization specifically, then maybe it's a agile, or it's a business analyst, or it's, you know, tech, some other tech organization that you could be out and talking to people in person. I get the introvert part, and I will say that I think I define myself as an ambivert, which, yeah, I had to look it up myself. But I know that when I go out somewhere, so long as I know that there's one person there that I'm going to meet up with, I will go. If I don't know anybody, sometimes it depends on my mood. So, you know, try and get out and come to wherever you're comfortable. and just talk to people. And it could also be that you're just going to go with coffee meetups of one-on-ones and walk-in talks with friends, former coworkers, people that actually know you. I think that's more comfortable in general. Anyway, let's see who's up in chat.
Yeah, it looks like there's one more question for you from Siri. Oh, I didn't know if you were reading it, but it's, do you?
I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm not currently looking, but I'm a QA doubling as a Scrum Master Agile since 13 years. If you have additional skills, qualifications besides the requirements posted in the job description, is it a good idea to mention or bring it up? I think that takes a certain amount of confidence. I will say that you will see on the template T letter that I put on my profile, it's not obvious to you, but I will say that, you know, I did the left-hand column with the requirements, and then the right hand of how I fit those requirements. But I think I added about 3 things on the end because they didn't mention anything about localization, and I really wanted them to. But I did also want to mention, and I'm glad you asked this, Siri, there was a SQL, an SQL requirement for it. And I honestly, on the T letter, I put that, you know, I have not touched SQL until since 2010 when I worked at AutoTrader. And honestly, it is of your requirements, it's what I'm weakest at, but I could probably pick that up pretty quickly with the little refresher class, right? But I called myself out by saying that, you know, basically, if this job is 90% SQL, I'm not your person, but I may know somebody. So, and I see, thank you, Moss, for doing that, because I couldn't do that while talking at the same time. Demian, what do you mean by seems like you need some indication that it's relevant? Are you answering series?
Yeah. I was just saying, like, if you have some skill that think would be valuable, but it's not on the job description, like sometimes if you try to show you're too broad, you might rule yourself out, like by not focusing on what they really need. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of reading between the lines too, right? I mean, and somebody did ask a question earlier about, you know, all these tools, that there are so many things. And I did want to say that, you know, a lot of the bug trackers, if you will, they all are looking for the same 8 to 12 different component parts that you need to put in there. So if you've used Jira or Bugzilla or one of the other ones, you should be able to use that knowledge and plug it into whatever bug tracker they're using at their company. It's so you just need to make that correlation. Like, oh yeah, I've used this, which is, you know, I believe it's really close to the product you use because I Googled it and you know, just be honest. You know, if you've used Jira or Confluence or one of these other tools that are very well known, then extrapolate and say, yeah, I think I could do that easily based on this.
All right. If anyone has any last minute questions, and a couple more minutes, and then we'll move on to our other Heather, who will be our last presenter for the night. Going once, twice. All right. Well, Susan, did you have you said your LinkedIn is where people can reach you, or and if you have any more questions?
Yeah, they're welcome to connect with me. It's easy. It's Susan Loth. I mean, I think I look like my picture. I'm in Atlanta, although I do leave mine vague. And just as a plug, I've never paid for LinkedIn, but I find it extremely helpful.
All right, thanks, Susan. Go ahead and move on to our last speaker tonight, which is Heather Wilcox. And she's been in the industry, I guess, the longest of our 3 speakers, at a whopping 25 years now.
30.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
quite a while in the field. But you're currently an engineering QA manager for the Northwest Evaluation Association, or NWEA as they like to abbreviate it, and you've been there almost 14 years, I believe.
Yeah, I started in 2011.
Yeah, and Heather's also on our board here at PNSQC and has been volunteering with us for probably maybe not as long, but still an impressive amount of years with us. And so, yeah, Heather's got a ton of experience, and I believe you wanted to focus more on resume, how to write craft that perfect resume. So I'll go ahead and pass it on over to you.
All right. Hopefully people can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, excellent. And it's a little bit weird because I've got two screens, so I'm gonna try to make my face go the right direction all the time. But anyway, so Jeremy did a nice synopsis. I put one here as well. Whoops. Now let's see if I can go. There we go. Yes, this is my 30th year in the tech industry. I've done tech support. I've been a configuration manager. I've been an IS manager, which in my case was internal services, which means I ran the computers, the network, and I put soda in the soda machine. Because I've worked a lot of startups, which means I've done a lot of weird things over the years. I've been QA at all levels. I'm junior through staff level engineer. I'm currently a quality engineering manager at, actually it's HMH. NWEA was purchased by HMH. And I have survived a lot of layoffs, but not all of them. I got caught in the dot bomb of 2001, and I got caught in the second one in 2008. But in 30 years, that's really not bad. I'm pretty pleased with that. I've also read a lot of resumes, and I've hired a lot of people. I've also gotten myself hired into quite a few jobs.
Keep right on.
Uh-oh, somebody's driving. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is based on my experience. And I'm sure I'll probably say something that will make Heather cringe a little bit, and I pre-apologize, and I might make Susan cringe a little bit, because I will say I've actually gotten a few jobs by posting or by applying through the website. But I'm special that way. So there you go.
It's healthy to have some differing opinions. If everyone had the same opinion on how it worked, then there wouldn't be there wouldn't be any good conversation about the right way.
That's true. And I will say I've also, in applying through because I didn't network, I've been to some interviews where I wish I hadn't applied. So it's got its upsides and its downsides. I think networking, to speak to Susan a little bit, networking helps you really narrow in on the job. Whereas when you are sort of spraying and praying, it goes both ways, in that you're putting a lot of resumes out there, but you're also spending time potentially going to job interviews that aren't a good fit. So, all right, moving forward, quick disclaimer, which I sort of touched on a little bit. Resumes are variable in nature. There's no right or wrong way to write one, but some ways are better than others. Also, anything I say can and will be used against me in the court of opinion. Because resumes they can be a volatile topic. You can talk to 4 different recruiters. They will give you 4 different opinions all day long and twice on Sundays. All right. So as a hiring manager, and I've been here, I was hiring somebody 2 years ago. I had 500 applicants, actually more than that, per position within a day or two. A lot of those resumes are from recruiters, or were from recruiters. A lot of them were what I call fake candidates, which are they either people that physically don't exist, or they don't stand up to their resumes. The resume overstates their qualifications, or the candidate name is stuck on a pre-formatted resume. They've got all the buzzword bingo words, but no backing experience. So when I opened my viewer, my particular HR tool to look at resumes, I need some way to really quickly sort the wheat from the chaff. And if your resume is not easy for me to read, you're not going to get my time. So that takes us to what the things that I want to see. I want my resumes to look like somebody real wrote it. If it looks like it's a copy and paste from a recruiter, I'm probably going to keep going. You have one page to tell me if I want to read more about you. So lead with the skills for the job you're applying for. If you have a statement at the top, it better be good. Do not waste my time. I hate reading the statements that say I'm a real go-getter and I learn fast. And who's gonna write a statement that says I'm really slow, I take forever to come up to speed. Nobody's gonna say that. So if you write a statement, tell me something unique about you that makes me want to hire you. I actually had somebody write I like frogs in their statement. And it was kind of just a cute little fun thing. And it made me want to talk to that person. And it turned out they got hired because I wanted to talk to them because they liked frogs and they said so. It won't work for all hiring managers, but it might get you in with a hiring manager that you want to work for. So once you've got me hooked, now put your job experience and the extra stuff on additional pages. If you hook me with the first page, now I'm going to look at the extra pages, and that's where I want to know the details. It's okay to have more than 2 pages. I've been in this industry for 30 years. My actual resume is 4 pages long. That said, I do edit my resume down when I need to suit the job, but my actual full resume is 4 pages long. The important thing is, as I just kind of mentioned a little bit, what's on that resume had better be relevant. The example here is I don't care about your Pizza Hut job when you were 19. I don't. That's great that you worked at Pizza Hut, but unless it's relevant to the job I'm hiring for today, don't tell me about it. Also, this is kind of funny, correct spelling and grammar. As a quality manager, if I'm reading your resume and your name is misspelled at the top, that tells me a lot about your attention to detail. This is exactly what friends are for. Have somebody that's not you read your resume, because by the time you've got it finished, or by the time you've updated it, you've looked at that thing 400 times and you've missed something somewhere. And I guarantee I'll probably find it because I'm that guy. So make sure, for any job in general, you should have correct spelling and grammar, but for a quality job in particular, we're going to catch it. We're going to catch it. So, and I apologize. I'm kind of ripping through this because I want to make sure that we cover everything and that there's time for people to ask questions. So, yeah. And Jeremy, feel free to, what if your name is spelled wrong on purpose? Sorry, I was looking at the chat. You better tell me that you spelled it wrong on purpose. Because otherwise I'm just going to think you're a doofus. Anyway, so this is an example of the first page of a resume. I've cut the name off the top, of course, to protect the innocent. I don't have time for this business. This is what we call a wall of words. The little icons under experience, there's a little cute icon. That really stinks of a recruiter. So that's going to turn me off too. If I didn't get turned off by the summary blurb at the top, which was not helpful, the little graphics that show me that that you probably ran this through a recruiter that's not gonna excite me either. So this guy probably will go in my circular file, and I believe he did actually. Sorry. Let's see, next page. This is more of the same person. Just a straight up wall of words. And at the very bottom, we have the skills bit, which is meant to attract attention from the Borg that does the resume sorting. So I get why the words are there, but they frustrate me because I can't see where these words have been used. So that's not helpful to me. And I apologize. Somebody pinged me, and so I lost my attention for half a second. So this is a resume that is not going to get very far, at least not with me. This is the first page of my resume, and it is probably got too many words on it, but you'll notice that I've called out right immediately this is my first page, and I've got leadership experience at the top. So if I'm applying for a manager position, that's what I'm going to lead with. And I've got some testing experience on there so that you know that I've, been in the trenches and done the thing. But if a manager, if I'm looking for a job, this first page tells the manager or the hiring person what everything they need to know, and if they want to bother to look farther. So once you look at this and decide, oh, hey, it also says how old I am because I've got C and C++ testing on there, and some other cute ones. I finally took Novell Networks off because I don't think people know what Novell is anymore. But that's just me in a nutshell. And so now here's where we get to the wall of words. You're interested in me, so now you can read about all the things that I've done and all the places that I've been, and and then at the very bottom, you'll see that I started my career as a support analyst. Very few hiring managers at this stage of my career are going to be interested in anything I did as a support analyst. So I've got it on there so that you can see that I did it, but that's it. So, and then of course at the very bottom, I have some extra cool stuff as published works, my volunteer experience, my education, all the usual resume fodder that people are expecting to see. So, tricks you probably know, which I've talked about a little bit. Start with your master resume that has all the things, because it's way easier to cut things out than it is to put things back in or remember things. Especially, after 30 years, I don't remember where I worked half the time. I have to go check my resume to remember where I was somewhere. As I demonstrated at the end there, remove the extraneous information. You don't want to show gaps in your resume, but you also don't want to waste the hiring manager's time with stuff that's not relevant to the job. So leave the job reference, but remove the details. You want to make your resume personal so that it doesn't look like it came from a resume generation board. You don't want to make it look like it came from a recruiter. So make it you, but also make it something that the Borgs can read, or the resume. What are those called? The resume, the AI resume checkers can ingest and work with.
Applicant track system.
Yes. And then make sure keywords are included, but not necessarily in a keyword list. As someone that hires, I want to know, if you say that you've got SQL experience, I want to know how you used it, what you did with it. Were you an engineer writing queries? Were you a tester? How were you using SQL? Or how were you using C? How are you using these keywords? Walls of words, which we've all touched on. Be bold but honest. So, if you've done work with something, put it on your resume, but be prepared when you get to that, if you make it to the face-to-face interview or even the phone screen, you need to be able to support what you've got on your resume. If you say that you know SQL and I ask you to give me an example of a join, if you say, I'm not going to be very impressed. Just like if you say you know how to use Linux and I ask you what the command is to do a directory listing, if you can't do that, then I know that you're full of it, and I'm now going to question everything else you've told me. So make sure you can support the content of your resume. And I really loved the thing that Heather did, the other Heather, did with AI, and that she gave you an example of how to use AI to help yourself out, but she never said, let AI generate your resume, because that's another thing that will turn me off. If I think AI wrote your resume, I'm not going to be impressed with that either. I'm going to think, well, I'm going to wonder what else you're letting AI do for you that you really probably should be doing for yourself. So let AI help you, but make sure that you use your own words. Something that I like to do is give AI if I write a paragraph, I'll give it to the AI and let it proofread it for me. And so I can see where I've got grammar problems or where I've got spelling problems. And then I'll decide if I want to leave my grammar the way it is, or if I want to change it. But the words are still mine. I'm just letting AI proof it for me, which is, if some jerk like me is reading your resume, probably not a bad idea, since I catch a lot of spelling mistakes. So, and the last one, let Dr. Google help you. I was actually poking around a couple of days ago, and there are a lot of good resumes out there. I searched for good resume examples and how to write a good resume, and I actually got a lot of great information. But I also noticed there are a lot of, because it's Dr. Google, there are a lot of articles that are old. And, something that a resume tactic that worked in 2014 may not work today. And I saw a few of those examples. And then I found a couple of fun sites. Resume Genius, they have a really good blog on different things. They had one about really just outright bad resumes, and that one was fun to read and very informative. And then I also found myperfectresume.com, and they had some good feedback on resumes. So I think I blew through my talk very quickly. So now, questions. I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find some questions.
I think there was one question that a couple of us answered while you were talking that related to keywords for trying to be visible as a QA director. What was sorry, I'm looking for the specific comment. Yeah, what are the role titles being used for QA these days? Julia's looking at titles similar to like director of QA, but not finding the title much on online searches.
So the thing that I'm seeing now, so for example, I am a manager of quality engineering. And in my company, there's actually, there are two types of quality folks. There's quality engineers who are higher paid. They write test cases. They do quality strategy. They do automation. So they are the engineers. And then we have quality assurance folks, and they are, they're the testers. So they don't do a lot of original work. They run off of test plans that are written by test engineers. So you might look for, instead of a QA director, look for quality engineering director or director of quality engineering. That seems to be the latest hot trend in the industry. So, and the same for if you're looking for what we used to call a QA job. Instead of looking for quality assurance, look for quality engineer or a quality engineering manager. Let's see here. Let me bebop down to the end here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there were any specific questions other than Susan just wrote. If anyone wants to, of the three of you, have any other pieces of, oh, we have a hand raised if you want to go, Corinne.
Yeah, I was just curious, Heather, what is your thought on the SDET and how that fits into what we just said about quality engineer, like software developer test?
Yeah. I actually am seeing that is a thing. So what am I trying to say here? If you're looking for jobs, you can look for software developer and test, and you will find those positions. So a quality engineer is I would say a quality person that codes, whereas a software developer and test is a coder that works with quality, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then
I just put in the chat that is my title, and that's been my title for the last 2 jobs. So yeah, for the startup that I work at, I'm focused mainly on quality assurance, but a lot of it is in terms of being able to write automation code, being able to architect frameworks, being able to do more than just black box testing, be able to have some basically jack of all trades, master of none, as someone, I forgot who said that earlier in the chat, but that tends to be how it goes when you're in a startup. But definitely my focus and expertise is in programming, just in the field of testing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Thank you.
SDETs are programmers first, and they work in the field of quality. And there's a message here from Chris, who I know. Hi, Chris. So AI, as everybody knows, the question is, how much should one's experience using AI tools to help with testing or other QA, QE activities be included or emphasized in a resume? As hot as it is right now, if you have honest to goodness experience using AI or AI tools to test, I think you want to put that in your resume. If you played with you know, ChatGPT a couple of times, don't do that. If you get the difference. If you've honestly used like Check AI or some other Mabel, you've got some Mabel experience, or one of the really hardcore AI tools, I would definitely put that on your resume though. Whoa, the messages are multiplying.
Siri has a question. Shall I read it?
Sure, thank you.
Does a QA or QE manager required to be an expert at coding or comma automation?
Expert, no. I think you need to be familiar. I've been looking around at QA and QE jobs just because I think it's in the current market, it's good to know what's available out there should the worst come. And I've been looking recently to just make sure that my skills are equivalent. And I'm seeing a lot of jobs that ask for a hands-on manager with automation or coding skills. So do you need to be an expert? Probably not. Do you need to know how to use Selenium, IDE, or some of the other, Cucumber or some of the other tools? Yeah, you probably should. You should at least be familiar enough to fake your way through some questions, or maybe answer some questions honestly is probably a better way to say that.
And you might be in a position to actually make the decision on where they go with automation. So you have to at least have a knowledge of several, if not an in-depth.
Yeah. And, as a QE manager, that is something that, that's a discussion I have on a regular basis with my folks as they're starting new projects. What's the right answer? Should we be using Playwright? Should we be using Selenium? Should we be using Cypress? What's the right tool? And I should be able to weigh in on those things. And in fact, I do. Let's see.
Looks like Kareem just wrote, what's your recommendation on getting better at or getting experience in automation?
The only way to, in my opinion, I'm a hands-on learner. I can read books all day, but it's the Charlie Brown cartoon. When I'm reading a book, a technical book, it's kind of wah until I sit down and actually play with something. So find something and automate it. So if you ever apply at my company, one of the things as a QE for a QE position, one of the things we're going to do is give you a test. And the test that we used for a long time is one that I wrote. And it basically asked you to automate testing the front page of Instagram. So, and it's a simple test. I took it myself. It should take you about 2 hours to do. Check to see if you're logged in. If you're logged in, log out, and then verify that all the elements of the page are there. So like the login button and all the little bits and bobs. Super simple test. I cannot tell you how many people sent me their password in their test. Yeah, because they didn't know. So the easy way to check on Instagram is if you're not logged in, there's a little button in the corner that says log in. So if the first step of that test is look for login and then and if it's there, then great. And if it's not there, log out. People didn't do that. They actually would log in to Instagram and then log out, which is craziness. So that actually, for me, sorted a lot of wheat from the chaff. So what I'm getting around to is there are lots of things you can practice automating on. There's something called there's Python koans, and I think they make koans now, KOANS. They make them for all kinds of different languages, so you can work through the koans, and they're basically they're little tasks that you do, and it helps teach you the automation. So,
Mons has a question.
Yeah, I'm looking. If someone wants to learn about automation, should they start with Selenium, Playwright, or something else? Playwright. So the answer to this question is going to change probably every 6 months for the rest of forever. Right now, Playwright is super popular, so I would recommend Playwright. Also, timeless things. Python is timeless, so it's never going to hurt you to know something like Python. Look at the jobs that are being offered and look at what they're looking for, so Jenkins, which is not an automation tool per se, but Jenkins is popular right now. Playwright is popular. Jira is popular.
Cypress is also a big one.
Yeah, Cypress, although Cypress is starting to fade.
Yeah.
And that's one of the worst pieces of advice, and I've shared this periodically, is that one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got from a manager, and he was an engineering manager, so I'm going to give him a little grace for that. But he said, you should really specialize. Worst advice ever for a QA engineer. We are in fact a jack of all trades. Good QA engineers are a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, when I started testing, I was testing C and C++, and then Java came out. So we tested Java, and then, React and Angular and whatever. And, and next week it will be something new. So as QA, we have to be willing and able to learn whatever comes out, whatever the new hotness is, because whatever's great right now will not be great in 6 months. This is a good one. Can we talk about the elephant in the room? I noticed the limited amount of software QA jobs in Portland since moving back from Seattle. Remote is your friend. I mean, yeah. I don't think there's a ton of jobs anywhere right now. There are jobs, but there aren't tons of them.
I would agree with what Thomas said. When I've had different periods of time where I've looked for jobs here in Portland. I looked right after graduating, like 2016. I had to look right before the pandemic in 2020, and then I've looked in 2023 and in 2024. And it was a absolutely sharp decline, and it never recovered after COVID hit in 2020, because I've never seen so few jobs. There were only remote jobs that I could apply for myself, for QA positions. I saw maybe 1 or 2 software QA jobs come up that were actually I could go to in person in the 2 job searches that I had in 2023, 2024. So it's a real thing. It's a real struggle. And as Heather said, yeah, I've had to just make that switch myself to having to find remote work, and it's worked out just fine for me. But I also know that there's convenience in being able to talk to your coworkers, being able to, have after work events with them, if that's, if you like to be a sociable person. So it's tough.
Yeah, I will say that as one of the things I try to do as a manager is make opportunities, because my team is virtual. I've got people scattered across the country. And one of the things I do as a manager is try to make opportunities for my people to get together, my folks to get together and chat with each other. So office hours, and we do virtual coffees. I was in one team I was on. This was great. On Thursdays at 4 o'clock, we did happy hour. So everybody would bring a beverage and sit at their computer and chat and drink. And it was actually, and some people had coffee and some people had wine, and whatever you brought was acceptable. But, we'd sit and just chat. And it's not the same as, going to the coffee droid to get your coffee every day. But, it allows some relationship building. Something I'm a lot more tolerant about now too is towards the end of the meeting, when we're done doing business, I will let people just chat about things and just give them that space to sort of, talk to each other and build those relationships. But you have to be a lot more intentional about it than we used to. Yeah, and there's a comment here about Heather has a great comment, which is true. The busiest hiring season of the year is January through March.
Yep.
The spring and the fall are always the best times. And then, you might have more luck. Demian said you might have more luck outside of the big tech companies, and I would agree with that. In fact, most of the time when I look, my first job was with Symantec, which was huge, and I swore after that I would never work for a big company again. And I managed to keep myself employed for 20 years by working small companies. So
Corinne,
sorry,
do you have another question?
Yeah, I sort of had a follow-up with all of these wonderful advice everyone was giving me for learning these automation tools outside of your job. Just wanted to know, how do you as a recruiter react when you realize that this person has done this work outside of their job, which is cool, but it's not actually in the context of a job? Is that a good thing? Is that a not good thing?
Is that to me or to?
Well, just you, and also in general. I'm just, how do I, so if I decide to take classes and learn about Playwright, figure how to use it on my own, but it's just, at least, I don't know, maybe you others probably know how this is. My company is very particular about what you install. So even if I wanted to, it would have to be on my own time, on my own machine. And so I wouldn't really be able to just choose a thing, even if I thought it was the coolest thing to use to solve a problem at work, because all the software has to be pre-approved by higher ups.
Yeah. I think if you spin it in the context of learning, I think it's fine. I may not. I value that you took the time to learn Playwright. I would like to see something that you did with it. Okay. And if you can show me something that you automated with Playwright, then that's one of the reasons I ask for the test, because it gives you an opportunity to show me something that you did.
Right.
So I wouldn't be against it. Now, if you sort of, the nightmare scenario for me is, oh yeah, I'm running a small business on the side doing extra testing, and this is what I wrote. That scares me a little bit, because it makes me question how dedicated you're going to be to my work. But I think I may be babbling a little bit, but as long as your usage isn't pathological, we're fine.
So I think what I'm hearing from that is, be able to prove you can do something, but don't prove you can do something to the point that it could potentially be detrimenting your job.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like one more question from Taylor. What resources have you found important for finding smaller community jobs, if you're looking for jobs outside of large tech?
They actually, LinkedIn, all the job sites have them. Back in the day, Craigslist used to be a great source for small jobs, but I think that's not a thing anymore. But I actually, this is what I look for jobs on LinkedIn. One of the things I look at is, I'll see the job posting for whatever it is, and then the company, Fred's House of Software, and I'll click on Fred's House of Software, and it'll show me how big the company is. Is it 50 people or less? Is it 100 to 500 people? Is it 500 to 1,000? And I'll actually decide whether or not I want to apply based on the size of the company, because I already know I'm not really I'm not good at the corporate gig. I don't dress as well as I should, and I'm a little bit loosey-goosey in the way I handle myself in public. So I'm not going to do well in a huge corporate environment. So I tend to stick with the smaller companies that can put up with my eccentricities. So yeah. But I see lots of small companies posting on LinkedIn and other sites too. Glassdoor, a lot of them have some sort of an information bit that will tell you how big the company is. And Heather, if you have any, I'm sure you've got expertise here as well.
I look on LinkedIn a lot as well. That Max List is great. Terrell is really familiar with Max List as well. We both met him at the networking event I was mentioned the other night. The thing is, there's a lot of companies that are posting, or at least were posting, fake jobs even on their own website, because of waiting to see what was going to happen with the election and wanting people to think that their company was just doing just fine and growing and all of that. I'm seeing less of that now, but they post less than 30% of their jobs on those platforms. You're going to see a lot more of the real jobs posted on their actual website.
Any other questions or comments?
If there aren't any specific questions to Heather, or you can ask the other Heather or Susan, or I was informed a little bit ago that someone may have wanted to do some soliciting or plugging for jobs. What was it, Moss, that you had for me?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Was it somebody looking for a job, or?
I'm looking for a job.
And where do you live?
Oh, this is Jasmine. I live in Beaverton, Oregon.
And what sort of positions are you looking for, or what sort of skills?
Test automation, QA. Yeah, I have over 15 years plus. And I'm focusing on both manual and automated testing. And I have extensive testing in, very complex multi-tier web-based application for Nike, for SureScript, and a lot of, IBM and Microsoft and Sure ID, a lot of companies that I work with, but I have been in the Pacific Northwest for 30 years. So if you know any position opening, please let me know. I'm glad to send my resume to you.
Jasmine, if I may, you gave a lot of information, but can you tell me one of the tools or a skill that is unique for you?
Yes, I have extensive experience in test automation using Selenium, Cypress, with different programming languages like C#, .NET, Java, JavaScript, and TypeScript. And I am very proficient in different type of testing phases throughout SDLC and agile methodologies. And I have been recognized by 53 recommendations from my former colleagues. I am one of the top-notch QA out there, but right now I have been seeking for a QA test automation for 3.5 months right now, and the market is really tough and challenge. So
I agree, it's hard out there, and you hit it right at the holidays too.
Yeah,
in that 3.5 months. So are you reaching out to former coworkers that might need someone on their team? Are you going and having the coffee meets or talking to them as well? Not just, like I said earlier, I don't believe in applying online. I'm going out and having coffee with friends or doing what I call a walk and talk which costs nothing but time.
Yeah. Yeah, I had been working for SureScript for almost 5 years before I got laid off last October. And it was really sad that, I thought that I grow old together with this company, but it's a great place to work. But I am one of, unfortunate one that got laid off. But before that, I was working for Nike for almost 2 years as a contract. And I have been working for so many different companies, like Collaget, Shoes ID, Tripwires, FileServe, Microsoft, Intel, IBM. So
I understand, Jasmine, but are you talking to the people you worked with? That's what you need to be doing, in my opinion.
I did. I reached them, reached out through LinkedIn, and yeah, it's tough market right now. So, and more than that, it seemed that a lot of QA job is outsourcing, and that's what it's hard. Yeah.
And one thing to do is just connect with people on LinkedIn because that helps boost your network. Is your last name Nguyen?
Yes,
Yes.
Jasmine Nguyen. You
Is it
can
okay if I put your LinkedIn thing into the chat so people can
Yes,
see
of
it?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, please message me, and I would love to connect with all of you. And I'm so, I will definitely send my resume out, and you can take a look. I would really appreciate that. I'm
Well,
looking for remote or hybrid contract or direct hire, you know. But yeah.
I've read articles that LinkedIn is not really it's not the best thing for direct connections. It's usually a friend of a friend of a friend, and you actually get a connection that way to some company. So just by us all, connecting together, we expand our network to have more people that we could, maybe tangentially recommend.
Yeah, and
So
that's a good point, Loth. I do that all the time. I'll be like, oh, I'm not a good match for that, but I've been talking to people, so I know that Steve Gray's looking, and let me call him out. And so if you want people to help you, the best way to have that happen is for you to help them, because I don't want to say that they owe you one, but boy, they're looking at you with a smile on their face, right? Going, hey, you helped me out. Oh, if I see something that looks like what you're looking for, I'm going to call you out now, right?
Okay.
And I've definitely had that happen in my life, in my job search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you available, I would love to go out and meet for lunch or coffee.
I would love that, Jasmine, but I'm in Atlanta. I'm sorry.
Oh, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes,
You
I was there in January and in October, but at home right now, I'm in Atlanta.
I see. It's a lot of job in Atlanta, Georgia, and Virginia and Pennsylvania, but in Oregon there is no more job left. What's going on?
Well, actually,
Jasmine, we
Oh,
can
go ahead.
talk, but maybe it's how you're looking.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry if I interrupted.
I was
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the trends that I'm seeing now, somebody mentioned this, is a lot of jobs are getting outsourced to India and especially India, but other countries as well. I'm a little bit torn on this. I've seen this happen before. For some reason, corporate entities forget. And when I first started, actually at NWEA, one of the other jobs I was interviewing for, actually, I had several interviews from companies that had outsourced their quality to other countries and discovered it didn't work, and were rebuilding their quality departments in-house. And I think we're kind of in the middle of another one of those times where everybody's outsourcing, and what they're going to discover is that, my hope at least is that that they're going to discover that offshore quality is not the same as onshore quality. There's something about having your engineers in proximity to one another that is definitely a value add. So I think we're going to have to hang out for a little bit longer and wait for the economy to improve, and I think we'll probably see jobs come back. But it's tough right now, and that's one of the reasons why I recommend remote, because at least then you have access to, you can work for a company anywhere in the country.
Yeah. Well, last time, the Oak Ridge National Laboratory asked me if I want to move over Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It's a big laboratory for the DOE, and but I have been here for 30 years in Pacific Northwest for 40 years, and now it's set to move to different state. But a single mom is very tough right now. Single mom with 2 college kids, it's just very tough. So yeah.
If I could speak to that,
ahead.
Jasmine, may I give a short example? The last job I got hired on, the job is actually posted in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Somebody I knew from high school actually looked at my profile on LinkedIn. I called him on it. I had just been laid off. I was literally on vacation in a foreign country, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing looking at me?" And he's like, "Oh, somebody is applying at my company." I said, "Oh, well, I knew them here, and this is what they were, and blah blah blah. Oh, by the way, I'm looking." And when we got to the interview process, I said, I was hemming and hawing because frankly, at my stage of life, I didn't want to move to South Carolina, much like what I hear you're saying. Right. And I said, could I work in Hilton Head 3 weeks out of the month and maybe work out of Atlanta, 1 week out of the month, and I just get a little apartment in Hilton Head because I wanted to keep my house here. And my parents are here, and I have, where I am in my stage of life, I didn't want to move. And he's like, well, Sue, we could probably work it out that you could come for 2 or 3 weeks and get to know the team and the process, and you could work out of the Atlanta office, because at this point I knew there was an Atlanta office. Now, it was not ideal because it's so much easier to talk to colleagues by yelling over the cube walls, but it worked for my situation with 70-year-old parents with health issues. I didn't need to be a 5-hour drive away. So anyway, push the envelope, talk to people and besides, this guy, I knew him in high school. I hadn't seen him in 30 years. He's like, Sue, if there was something wrong with you, I would know it. And I know you can do the job. I would have heard if there was something wrong, because we know so many people in common. I know you can do the job. So don't count yourself out. Reach out to who you know.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt there because we're starting to get close to our time, and I don't want to keep people for too long. I'm just going to quickly do a little wrap up on the presentation, so give me 1 second to do that.
Could I offer just a quick comment?
Sure, you can do that.
I think it's real relevant. So Jordan Terrell, I'm from Portland, Oregon. I've actually worked professionally with Heather Joy, and very cool to just join you all this evening. I think for everyone listening, it's incredibly valuable, everything these ladies have said. Heather Wilcox, Susan Loth, and Heather Joy. If you have the chance to work with them and help improve your career readiness, your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn optimization, interview coaching, I have used it personally and a bit in transition. And so my just recommendation, keep that conversation going and consider reaching out. But thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming, Jordan. Appreciate that plug for them. Yeah, I know all 3 of them. Well, I've talked with all 3 of our presenters in depth at various points, and yeah, they've all have a lot of good information that some of which couldn't share with us tonight because of time, but definitely reach out to them. Yeah, in regards to PNSQC, where you made it this far, thank you so much for making it through our whole meetup. If you would like to help us put on events like this, we're always looking for volunteers. These are just various ideas for different things that you could get involved with if you're interested with anything that involves putting on the events or doing some behind the scenes work. We're always looking for new people to join us. If you have any desire to do that, go ahead and you can visit our website at pnsqc.org and find the volunteers tab and send us an email, or reach out to any of our, to Moss or myself. And then, yeah, so
It's
just
actually,
to,
you should say too that it's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet
yes,
people to network.
of
So anyway,
course. I've met a lot of great people since starting to volunteer for my own volunteering here. And then just also a reminder that we do have our call for abstracts open for our conference this October. So we're looking for that next great idea, and anything that has to do with software quality, you can go ahead and visit our website, read about how our conference works if you're not already familiar. Send in your abstract, and if you do present at our conference, you do get free admission to it. So and all paid for in terms of, there's a travel stipend I believe we're continuing, and yeah, and the conference itself is paid for. So yeah, that's all I've got. I think that's all our presenters got, unless anyone's got any